Hey guys, it's Loveless, and it's time for another epic. Today we look at a situation playing out in Russia, the fate of Brittney Griner. As you may know, the basketball star Brittney Griner is stuck as a prisoner in Russia after being caught in an airport with less than a gram of vape cannabis oil. Unfortunately, due to Russia's strict laws, she was sentenced to 9 years in prison, a terrible, shocking outcome that many find excessive. Let's get to the chart. It was made before her sentencing on July 9th, 2022. Aquarius is rising in this chart. Brittney is a sun in Libra, but I do get that Saturn-Uranus energy. She's very tall at 6'9" and lanky with a dry body type, that is to say, the opposite of a voluptuous woman, and is gay and androgynous. I see Aquarius describing her personality as she's known for being rebellious, protesting the singing of the national anthem for a basketball season, and other political activism. She's dubbed an American-hating lesbian by detractors. The ascendant is at 29 degrees, a critical degree, showing the situation would be coming to a conclusion soon. Soon she would understand her fate. A little less than a month later after making this chart, on August 4th, her sentence was revealed. Back to Brittney. Brittney is Saturn retrograde in Aquarius here. The 12th house is in Capricorn. This is not a good sign, as an omen for Brittney. Brittney and prison are one and the same. She would be going to prison. We can see the unfortunate energy here that manifested in real life. Aquarius is a fixed sign, showing no or slow movement, and Saturn is a planet associated with things happening for a long time. So, as Brittney is Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, this shows potentially a very long time in prison. The max sentence for her charge was 10 years, and Brittney was given 9. As you can imagine, she is not doing well, as a person who is represented by a retrograde planet usually isn't.
It was the most disturbing phone call I'd ever experienced. And I've known BG 11 years. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, that was the most disturbing conversation.
What was disturbing to you?
It was her. Like you could hear it. Like you could hear that she was not okay. You know, if you think about just a person suffering and when they have suffered to a max, like you could hear that like she was at the max that day. And I'm like, God. And there was nothing I could do, you know.
Saturn in Aquarius has some power, as she is an accomplished athlete, most likely with more money than the average person and more support. For example, the WNBA swore their allegiance to her. But it is not enough. She's unable to move forward how she pleases, and Brittney is scared. Let's talk about Russia concerning Brittney. What will be their attitude towards her? Russia is represented by Mars in Taurus, ruler of the 9th house, and the imagery should give you a good idea of their attitude. This suggests a militant and severe country, aggressive and ready to fight. Their sense of justice is likely skewed, a more old-fashioned country, favoring very damaging punishment. Mars in Taurus is malignant, and it's unlikely they will act favorable towards her. Mars here has no care in the world for Saturn, and Russia has no care for Brittney's best interests. Mars' shadow placement in this chart, which conveys hidden motives, places it at 26 degrees Leo. This places Mars opposite Saturn and means they are very much opposed to Brittney and her public enemy. Pluto is prominent here and another indicator of Russia. Pluto's position at the 12th house cusp I see as Russia being very much about having her imprisoned, and as Pluto is retrograde, will create enormous turmoil for her. They are well aware of how they are inconveniencing her. Trouble abroad. Let's talk about Brittney's actual visit, and we'll reveal some more information about Russia's attitude. Brittney was traveling to play with her Russian team, who she had played with since 2014. Her trip is shown by the 9th house of travel, which I mentioned before also represents Russia. Scorpio is over this house, easily a perilous sign, showing that if there is trouble abroad, the trouble found may be vicious and quite severe. As Mars rules this house and has a negative influence in this chart, this trip was going to go badly, causing damage and ruin. Besides her freedom, this damage and ruin hits hardest financially, with Mars in the second house. Not only was she unable to play to make extra money, she is unable to play at all. Long-term financial losses she will endure, as Mars and Taurus in the second house would describe. Notably, the South Node is joined to a few Greek lots, which show themes at play, and we should explore that as the South Node is prominent in our inquiry. South Node conjunct increase. This lot I associate with some type of fortunate gain. Likely, Brittney was going abroad for opportunity and financial gain. In the US, WNBA players make a fraction of what male players do. It's said some players are lured to play abroad as the salaries are much higher. South Node conjunct necessities, constraints. This speaks to me of things that we need or are required to do. Perhaps for her situation, it felt in her best interest to go work in Russia. South Node conjunct skill, talent. Brittney is very accomplished as a basketball player and won an Olympic gold medal. However, now this is damaged as the South Node shows, and she won't be able to put her skill to use. Another tumultuous indication. The moon is here but not doing well. The moon is in Scorpio, the worst position in the zodiac for the moon. The energy here speaks a lot of emotional strife and disaster for Brittney. The moon also represents the foreign judge on her case and the Russian government in general. With what I just described, it was unlikely that the judge would give Brittney a fortunate outcome. Rather, it's pretty clear that her trial would not go well. It would go disastrous. The actual event of her butting heads with Russian authorities is the moon leaving a square from Saturn retrograde, which represents Brittney in imprisonment, and the moon separating from a sextile with Neptune retrograde, Neptune commonly representing drugs. Both the moon and the Saturn in fixed signs again showed this situation folding out for the long term. She would not be done quickly after the offense and back to America. No, she would be stuck in her situation. Let's talk about the fifth house of sports. The fifth house is prominent here and relevant. The fifth house in this chart represents Brittney's performance as a basketball player. The fifth house is in Cancer, and the moon rules this house. With the moon in the ninth house, this shows as above, so below. Brittney traveling far away to compete, but as the moon is damaged, this leading to some undoing. The part of fortune is here, indicating what we know, that a bulk of Brittney's success and fortune is due to her pursuing sports. But again, as the moon is tainted, so is this blessing. Mercury is here along with the sun. Mercury represents Brittney's family, who have most likely benefited from her career and her homeland in general. The sun is most likely Brittney's wife, who has also benefited from her sports career, and we see that with the sun on the part of fortune. Alas, the sun looks powerless in this situation, and she really isn't able to help Brittney with becoming emancipated herself, of course. I see her more so helping with her affairs, especially those sports related. Let's talk about America and Brittney's supporters. Brittney is holding out hope that America can aid her with returning home. The U.S. Department of State has classified GRINER as wrongfully detained. Reached late Monday, a State Department official sent ESPN a statement saying, "The Department of State has determined that the Russian Federation has wrongfully detained U.S. citizen Brittney GRINER. With this determination, the Special President Envoy for Hostage Affairs, Roger Carstens, will lead the interagency team for securing Brittney GRINER's release." On August 4th, Biden announced Russia is wrongfully detaining Brittney. It's unacceptable, and I call on Russia to release her immediately so she can be with her wife, loved one, friends, and teammates. My administration will continue to work tirelessly and pursue every possible avenue to bring Brittney and Paul Whelan home safely as soon as possible. In this chart, freedom-loving America is appropriately Jupiter, the strongest planet in this chart. As we all know, America is a powerful heavyweight when it comes to foreign affairs. The moon trine Jupiter here indeed suggests America and Russia communicating about Brittney's fate. Trines tend to show positive things happening, but in this chart, the energy of the moon is negative, so I'm not sure how well the communication goes. There's been talk about a prisoner exchange, a Russian prisoner for Brittney's freedom. Venus is trine Saturn here, Venus representing Russian prisoners on American soil. I am wondering if this trine shows a successful exchange. Venus rules over Mars here, meaning, if my line of thinking is correct, this is probably the only avenue Russia would submit to. Trevor Reed, a Marine veteran, is an American prisoner who was set free through a prison exchange after spending 3 years in Russian prison. He described the terrible conditions of Russian prison, and that Brittney might be moved to a labor camp or left in Moscow if they're considering releasing her early. Venus trine Saturn showed something happening for Brittney in a little under 4 weeks. It was a little under 4 weeks after this chart was made that Russia announced considering a prisoner exchange. There's an argument as well that Russia yields to the pressure of the disapproval of the masses and media to bring her home. As far as other support, such as the likes of Dennis Rodman and Justin Bieber, other friends and allies, they are shown as Saturn here, the same as Brittney. I see this as saying they will have their hands tied and unable to help. And now for the conclusion of our reading. I do believe Brittney will return, which her wife is worried about, but not as quickly as she would like. Will she return before her prison sentence is complete? That I'm honestly not sure. The energy is looking very negative, but I think there's hope in this chart for paperwork to be drafted for a successful prisoner exchange. I look forward to the outcome of this situation and will be watching from afar. Something good that could come from this situation, besides Brittney returning home, could be that more resources will be invested in other Americans wrongfully detained and sentenced egregiously abroad. That's my reading on Brittney Griner's plight, and I'll see you in the next one.